Okay, let's unpack this. I want to take you back to a specific time and place, and I want you to really try to inhabit this setting with me. It is June 9th, 1912. We are in Villisca, Iowa. It's a humid, heavy Sunday night, the kind of heat that just sticks to you. The town is dark, the streets are empty, and we are zooming in on a small, white frame house at the end of a quiet street. Inside, you've got the Moore family, Josiah, Sarah, their 4 kids, and 2 neighbor girls staying over for a sleepover, so 8 people. The doors are locked, the windows are shut. It is the absolute picture of rural American safety.
It's the sanctuary. That is the architectural and psychological purpose of a home, right? It's supposed to be the one place in the universe where the chaos of the outside world just can't get to you.
Exactly, and that is where the source material for this deep dive takes a sharp left turn. Because usually when we look at true crime, we're looking for the break-in. We look for the shattered window, the forced lock, the breached perimeter. But the sources we have today, which I have to say are fascinating, they include these intense discussions from unresolved mystery communities on Reddit, alongside literary analysis of Gothic horror and summaries of H.P. Lovecraft. And they all point to something much, much worse than a break-in.
Right. The evidence suggests this wasn't a break-in, not in the traditional sense anyway. The nightmare scenario here, the hook that really disturbs people even 100 years later, is that while the family was walking home from church, while they were locking those doors and blowing out the lamps, the danger was already inside.
That is the specific detail that grabbed me. We aren't just looking at a murder case today. We're looking at why the Villisca Axe Murders, over a century later, feels less like a police file and more like a piece of dark folklore. Our mission is to figure out why this specific case haunts us so deeply compared to, thousands of other crimes from that era.
And to do that, we have to look at the details, because the devil really is in the details here. We're going to look at the forensic facts, but we're going to view them through the lens of those horror sources you mentioned. We need to understand why these facts feel like they were written by a horror novelist rather than found by a police officer.
So let's start with the nightmare in the attic. This was a huge talking point in the Reddit threads we analyzed. They call it the attic waiter theory.
It's the most enduring theory for a reason. So let's look at the timeline. The layout of the house is crucial here. It's small, it's a wooden house, you hear everything. The family and the Stillinger girls get home from the Children's Day service at church around, 9:30 p.m. They hang out, eat some cookies, maybe talk about the sermon, and go to sleep.
A completely normal night.
Completely normal. But investigators later found evidence in the attic that suggests someone had been up there for hours. Specifically, they found cigarette butts.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here, because the Reddit threads certainly did. Could those have been old, like maybe the dad, Josiah, smoked in the attic?
Yeah.
Or maybe a handyman left them there a week ago?
That's the first question I asked, too. But the sources point out that Josiah Moore wasn't a smoker, or at least he didn't smoke up there. And more importantly, the positioning suggested someone was sitting, waiting.
Just imagine the physics of that for a second. You're sitting in a cramped, dark attic. It's June in Iowa, so it is hot. It is stifling.
Yep.
And you're listening to the family below you.
You're right above them. You'd hear the plates clinking in the kitchen. You'd hear the children laughing. You'd hear the bedtime prayers.
That's the part that is just nauseating. It changes the dynamic entirely. It's not an impulsive attack, it's a hunt. It's voyeurism turned deadly.
Right.
And this connects directly to the literary sources in our stack. We have summaries of H.P. Lovecraft's supernatural horror in literature. Lovecraft talks about this specific emotion called dread. How does he define it? Because I feel like I know what dread is, but he probably has a fancier way of putting it.
He does. Lovecraft distinguishes between fear, which is a reaction to a visible threat, like a bear charging at you or a guy with a gun, and dread. Dread is the suspicion that the laws of nature or safety are suspended. It's the feeling of a presence before the monster reveals itself.
So if the killer is in the attic, he is the physical embodiment of dread. He's the thing that shouldn't be there, but is.
Exactly. He has violated the sanctuary contract of the home before he even lifts a weapon. By the time the family went to sleep, they were already victims. They just didn't know it yet. The Reddit users discussing this often point out that this is the scariest part. Not the violence, but the proximity. The idea that you could be brushing your teeth while your killer is 10 feet above your head.
That brings us to the event itself. And I have to be honest, reading through the autopsy notes and the descriptions, it is heavy. We are talking about absolute carnage. Josiah and Sarah Moore, the kids, Herman, Catherine, Boyd, Paul, and the neighbors, Lena and Ina Stillinger, all bludgeoned to death.
It was an annihilation. There is no other word for it. It wasn't a robbery gone wrong where someone panicked. It was a systematic elimination of life in that house.
But this leads to the mystery of sleep. This was a massive debate in the forums we looked at. How do you kill 8 people with an axe, which is a loud, messy, heavy tool, without anyone waking up? I mean, if I drop a phone on the carpet, my dog barks. If a floorboard creaks, I'm awake.
It's a question that defies logic. The Reddit threads had a lot of theories on this. One camp argues for what they call the deep sleep theory. The idea is that in 1912, life was physically harder. You worked manual labor all day. There were no screens keeping you awake with blue light.
Right, no phones.
The argument is that when people back then slept, they were dead to the world.
I don't know if I buy that entirely. Evolutionarily, we are wired to wake up to danger. A loud thud next door. The sound of an impact.
Well, that's just it. The sources suggest there weren't really screams. The killer used the blunt end of the axe for most of the strikes. It was efficient. One blow to incapacitate or kill.
God, that is terrifyingly calculated.
It is. And there's the layout argument. If he starts with the parents, the threats, and moves methodically. But you're right to be skeptical. The sources note that only one person, Lena Stillinger, showed signs of defensive movement. Everyone else, they apparently never moved.
It's almost like a supernatural force swept through the house. And I think that supernatural feeling is why this case sticks. If it was a chaotic robbery where people were fighting back, it's a crime. But this silence,
Yeah.
it's eerie.
And that eeriness ramps up significantly when we look at the aftermath. This is where the gothic element really takes over. If the attic is the suspense, the aftermath is the psychological horror.
You took out the rituals,
Yes. The killer didn't just kill and run, he engaged with the environment.
the mirrors. That's the detail I can't shake. The sources say he covered every mirror in the house with sheets or clothing.
And not just the mirrors, he covered the faces of the victims too.
Why? I mean, obviously we can't ask him, but what do the experts or the community think? Is it remorse?
Well, if we look at this through the lens of folklore, which is appropriate given how this story has aged, covering mirrors is a huge trope. In many cultures, Victorian cultures included, you cover a mirror when someone dies so their soul doesn't get trapped. Or so the living don't see death reflected, which is considered bad luck.
But this guy isn't mourning them. He killed them.
Exactly. So it shifts from respect to something psychological. Is it shame? Or perhaps depersonalization? If you cover the face, they aren't a person anymore. They're just a shape under a sheet.
It's like he couldn't stand to be watched. Not by the victims, and not even by himself in the reflection.
Precisely. It brings up Freud's concept of the uncanny or unheimlich, which helps explain why this gives us the creeps. The uncanny is when something familiar becomes strange and frightening. A bedsheet is the most comforting thing in the world. It's for warmth, for sleep, for safety. But when you drape it over a dead body or a mirror in a murder scene, you corrupt that object. You make the domestic object terrifying.
And speaking of corrupting the domestic, he didn't leave. This is the detail that makes my skin crawl.
No. This is the Goldilocks nightmare. Evidence suggests he stayed for a while. He washed his hands in a bowl of water, leaving it bloody. And this is the part that gets me. He went to the kitchen and found food.
He had a snack.
He had a snack with 8 bodies in the next rooms.
That implies a level of comfort. That's not panic. That is not an adrenaline dump.
It's ownership. That's the psychological takeaway from the analysis. By killing the occupants, the intruder took the house. He felt safe enough to perform these little rituals, to clean up, to eat. It wasn't a frenzy, it was an occupation.
It is that calm behavior that makes people jump to the supernatural explanations. It feels like a haunting because the killer was haunting the house while he was still physically there.
Yeah.
But we do have more grounded theories in the source stack. We have to talk about the man from the train.
Yes. This is probably the strongest theory for a rational explanation, though it's no less scary. It comes largely from a book literally titled The Man from the Train by Bill James and Rachel McCarthy James, which was referenced heavily in our notes.
The basic premise is that Villisca wasn't a one-off.
Right. We tend to look at Villisca in a vacuum because it's so famous, but the sources point out that between 1911 and 1912, there was a string of family annihilations across the Midwest. Families killed in their sleep with an axe near a railroad.
The railroad is key here. We have to contextualize this for you. In 1912, the train system was everything. It was the interstate highway and the internet combined.
It was how you moved, and crucially, it was how you moved anonymously. You could be a drifting laborer, hop a coal train, get off in a town like Villisca, walk a mile, and be gone before sunrise.
But here's the detail from the Reddit deep dive on this that blew my mind. The weapon. If you're a serial killer on a train, you aren't carrying an axe in your luggage, right? That looks suspicious.
Correct, and you don't need to. One of the users pointed this out brilliantly. In 1912, an axe wasn't a weapon, it was a toaster.
A toaster.
It was a ubiquitous household appliance. Every house had a coal shed or a wood pile. Every house needed fuel. So you didn't need to bring a weapon. You just walked into the backyard, picked up the homeowner's own axe, and went inside.
That is profound. It means the tool that killed you was the tool you used to keep your family warm.
It's that corruption of the domestic again. The killer didn't bring the violence with him, he activated the potential for violence that was already there.
Now, I noticed some pushback in the sources on this. Not everyone buys the serial killer theory.
True, it's important to be balanced. Some historians and community members argue that axe murders were just statistically common back then. There was no CSI. Violence was brutal. If you lump all axe murders together, it's like lumping all handgun murders together today and saying it's one guy.
That's a fair point. We do tend to look for patterns where there might just be chaos. We want it to be one monster, because that's easier to understand than the world is just violent.
Exactly. But even if it's not the same guy, the railway killer profile fits the facts of Villisca perfectly. A stranger passing through, striking at random.
And that randomness is harder to accept than a specific grudge. If it's a neighbor who hates you, you can understand the motive. You can say, well, I don't have enemies, so I'm safe.
Ooh.
But if it's a drifter who just liked the look of your house, that's pure bad luck.
It strips you of agency. You can be the nicest person in town, pay your tithes, lock your doors, and it doesn't matter.
Now, speaking of similar cases, there was another one mentioned in our stack that feels like a spiritual sibling to Villisca, Hinterkaifeck.
Oh, yes. The Hinterkaifeck murders. Germany, 1922. So a decade later, and a continent away, but the parallels are chilling.
This one actually scared me more than Villisca when I read the summary. It's an isolated farmstead, 6 people killed, mattock used instead of an axe, but same idea. But it's the lead-up.
It's the attic again.
Tell him about the lead-up.
So days before the murders, the father at Hinterkaifeck tells neighbors he's hearing footsteps in the attic. He finds a newspaper in the house that he never bought, from a city he hasn't visited. Keys go missing.
It is the dread again, the someone is here feeling. The violation has already happened.
And the visual detail that makes Hinterkaifeck legendary. The footprints in the snow.
This is straight out of a movie.
The father finds a set of footprints in the fresh snow leading out of the woods into the house.
But not leading away.
Exactly. They went to the house and stopped. And he still went to sleep that night.
Exhales.
Yeah.
That is the definition of a horror story. But it is real life.
It taps into that primal fear of intrusion. Whether it's a farmhouse in Bavaria or a frame house in Iowa, the terror comes from the realization that the walls you built to keep the world out, they failed. The thing is already inside.
So bringing it back to Villisca, we have these theories, we have the forensic evidence, but the bottom line is, the case was never solved.
Never. There were suspects, a Reverend Kelly who was a known peeping Tom, a state senator with a grudge, but no conviction.
And that lack of closure is huge for the legacy, right?
Yeah. It's everything. If they catch the guy the next day, Villisca is a tragedy. We remember it sadly, but we move on. Because it's unsolved, it becomes folklore. It becomes an open loop. And nature hates a vacuum, so we fill that vacuum with ghost stories.
And we literally fill the house with people. The house is still standing. It's a tourist attraction now. You can pay actual money to sleep in the room where the children died.
You can. It's a thriving business.
Would you do it?
Absolutely not. Not for $1 million.
I am with you. But people do. And this sparked a massive controversy in the Reddit threads we analyzed.
It's very polarizing. On one hand, you have the ghost hunters. They go there with spirit boxes and cameras, hoping to catch an EVP. But some of the user reviews we saw were disappointed. They called it tacky. They said it felt staged. They mentioned the house is just dirty and cold, not scary.
Which kind of breaks the spell.
Reality rarely lives up to the legend. But there is a deeper ethical point that came up in the source text. A lot of users felt that turning a site of a mass child murder into a haunted attraction is deeply disrespectful.
Yet one user used the word distasteful. Like, we're treating the slaughter of an entire family as an amusement park ride.
It raises the question, when does a victim become a ghost? When does a tragedy become content? The sources suggest that for Villisca, enough time has passed, 100 years, that the specific humanity of the Moore children has faded. They have been replaced by the story.
It reminds me of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. We had that summary in our stack about how Alvin Schwartz collected folklore, Villisca has basically become that. It's the hook, or the vanishing hitchhiker.
Exactly. In those books, stories serve a function. We tell them to process our fears safely. Villisca is a container for our fear of the dark, our fear of the unknown. We tell the story so we can control the fear rather than the fear controlling us.
But is a container with real blood in it.
That is the uncomfortable truth we have to sit with.
So let's wrap this up. We have looked at the attic waiter, the covered mirrors, the man from the train, the parallels to Germany. Why does this case refuse to die? Why are we still talking about it now?
I think ultimately it comes down to vulnerability. Think about sleep. Sleep is the ultimate act of trust.
You have to trust the world not to hurt you while you're unconscious.
Exactly. You lie down, you close your eyes, and you surrender control. Villisca is the ultimate betrayal of that trust. It says that while you were doing the most necessary natural human thing, someone was watching. Someone was waiting.
It's the realization that the lock on the door was just theater. It didn't matter.
And that's why it's a gothic horror. It's not about the axe, it's about the atmosphere, the unseen presence. The footsteps in the attic that you tell yourself are just the wind settling in the eaves.
Well, on that absolutely terrifying note,
Yeah.
I think we have unpacked why the Villisca Axe Murders still keep us up at night. It's not just a crime scene. It's a mirror for our own vulnerability.
It's the reminder that the scary thing isn't always out there in the woods. Sometimes it's already home.
We hope this deep dive gave you a new perspective on this century-old mystery. And hey, before you go to sleep tonight,
Don't say it.
maybe just take a quick peek in the attic.
Or don't. Sometimes ignorance is bliss.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. Sleep tight.
Goodbye.